Bravo, Diego, for your introduction. And I was aiming to be, say, the piano player for the next 45 minutes. But then I realized that we are in the birth town of Mozart, and therefore it seems too much an ambitious target for myself. Say that antibiotic resistance, or the cry for help in terms of antibiotic resistance, is relatively new. Diego put through some very good historical example, and I would like to put into perspective, say, the size of the problem. Say, the first paper just showing that there is a transfer of antibiotic resistance between the man and the animals dates back to November 2016. So it's very new. And it happened right when the whole world was shocked about, say, the Bataclan terrorist attack. Many research followed, and in a very short time, the UN, the United Nations, declared antibiotic resistance as a global priority. I'm a curious person, and I went to see some stats. I checked the Interpol's, say, website, plenty of information there. And you can see that, say, due to the victims, the annual, say, number of victims due to terrorist attack between 2006 and 2016 were roughly 25,000 per year. Now, the worst scenario that the UN is predicting for 2050, unless we act now, reports casualties up to 10 million. So it's a 400 times bigger problem than terrorists. So we have to act now. And how do we act? Do we have to act now and go for that new business model or new industry model where, say, the priority is a prudent use of antibiotics? It's just to consider what is the mantra of antibiotic-free production, which can be resumed very easily. Gut health, and, say, Hannes spoke about it, and as well as Diego. And the other thing is efficiency of the immune system. Biosecurity immediately was perceived as one of the solution, one of the most logical solution, yet to be proven. And a lot of researchers already have, say, put together some paperwork proving that, yes, I mean, antibiotic can be one of the solutions, because I don't think that, say, antibiotic can be replaced by one only strategy, but there should be a kind of holistic approach. Biosecurity can help directly, for instance, in the case that it keeps down as much as possible, say, the disease challenge in the environment, or there are some parts of biosecurity that are essentials, like water sanitation, that have a direct impact on the gut health. But I think that one of the values of biosecurity is the indirect impact on the control of antibiotic resistance. That it stimulates, say, if we think of biosecurity in terms of, say, a management system rather than a disease control tool, then it will spur, say, the education of the end user, of the market, of the whole industry. So that is, in my view, the biggest, say, benefit that can come from biosecurity. So we have to skip a little bit far from what was, say, the traditional view of biosecurity. that is, it was one way of breaking the infection chain, and embrace a new vision whereby biosecurity becomes, say, a global priority. And it's an individual, say, commitment and a shared value. Biosecurity is ours, is nobody else. We have all the tools. It's basically, mindset is very important. Motivation of the people to behave according to certain rules that matters. And this is our journey for the next 45 minutes. We are going to review step by step all these points. So we start from megatrends. We cannot ignore them. We have to cope, we have to face, we have to challenge them. But certainly we have to take them into account. And the first one, you can see, I put there the lingerie, the evolution of the lingerie weather index in that case. The first one is, is climate change. This is reality. I mean, we have a prediction, the experts are telling us that during this century, if nothing is done again, say the average temperature will, of the planet will raise of approximately 3 degrees. This is going to display a devastating impact on disease challenge. We will have new forms of disease. Just let's make an example. The risk of salmonella contamination can increase 10, 15 times. So just for 1, say, degrees of increase of temperature, by 10, 15%. That would mean that probably at the end of this century, we will have a 50% greater salmonella problem. But this is not the only case. Let's think, for instance, of water. Water is an essential part of the diet of any animal. They drink 3 times, 4 times, maybe more in certain period of their career than the feed intake. There will be more and more focus on the quality of water. And what is going to happen? The water requirements are increasing, but on the other side, say, with the increase of temperature, we will have coastal erosion. And that means that more and different type of pollutants are getting into, say, the aquifer, as well as new parasites and new disease. So we have to maybe, I mean, if we think a little bit outside of the box, that there is a role for the vets, or whoever is a vet in the room, to find the job as, say, a climate change risk manager. Then we don't have to forget, I mean, the day-to-day farm management. It's a whirlwind. There are a lot of priorities, all happening at the same times, and all having the same dateline. We want the problem fixed for yesterday. That is the reality. And this is the worst situation in order to plan ahead, to think a little bit beyond the tip of the nose. This is a typical example, an aerial picture of a Po Valley, of the Po Valley. You can see that there are more or less 9 farms, not more or less, there are 9 farms, different animals, different ages, different production schemes, different movement of people, different movement of vehicles. That's why we should think more in terms, for instance, when we think of biosecurity, we need to specialize on territorial biosecurity and think more in terms of microzoning rather than compartmentalization, which is what is happening now, especially to control the big emergency like avian flu in poultry, sorry, or rather than, say, foot and mouth. So, of course, in this situation, and if you look another picture, this is, say, illustrating what is the pig density in what can be considered the leading pork region in Italy, Lombardy, which accounts for nearly 50% of the pig production. Sorry. And you can see that the problem is that farms are very close to each other, maybe sometimes even less than 300 yards distant from each other. And sometimes compromises on biosecurity are made just for the sake of keeping good, say, neighboring relations. These are situations that need to be addressed if the territorial say we need to build a culture to address this issue. Because disease is on the agenda. On every day's agenda is a red circle. And that can be, and the officials, not Mark is telling you, but officials are saying that a disease can wipe up around 20% of your gross production value, which is a lot of money. Just in a country like Italy, it would mean a loss of around, say, 500 million lira. And I'm not asking the Italians that are present in the room to divide it by the number of pigs raised or the sows that are present in our farms, because then the figures can escalate to a real nightmare. What we cannot afford is this picture. I mean, Italy cannot be considered, say, one of the leading countries or the top scorers, if we want to speak football-wise, since we are football maniacs in Italy. Unfortunately, we are not going to show up in Russia this year. But, I mean, we cannot afford this picture anymore. We have to find a new model. Diego was talking about, say, the electronic recipe. But we have to add that, say, our Ministry of Health decided a couple of months ago that, say, the use of antibiotics in farms should be curbed by at least 30% within 2 years. But it's a problem of education. You can quite clearly see this from the following slides, whereby Italy is still on the podium, even as far as the consumption of antibiotic for human health. The question is, do we love antibiotics? Do we need them? Or are we just simply maniacs? But this, and the answer, we can find the answer by educating the people, taking them along to new business models. Because, in my view, I am personally happy and I'm sorry for, say, vets or farmers that no other antibiotic seems to be in the pipeline. Because if we have a new antibiotic, a new active ingredient, it will be just like putting a finger in a bucket that is pouring water from so many holes already. So we need to innovate. We have to, and what can make the difference is the mindset. The mindset, if you don't change your mind, nothing is going to change in your life, in your career, or in your business. Let's consider the other issues. What are the sustainable goals? I mean, there is a famous slide that I know that other speakers are going to use. But we really have to focus on what are the relationships between human health, animal health, and, say, environmental health. people and animals are interacting on a common ground, which is the environment. And healthy animals are sustainable, or sustainable animals are healthy. You don't know which way is the true way, but certainly healthy animals don't need antibiotics. So again, say the focus is on pressure. And this is is part of my history. It's part of my history because I was using this as a slide where I was just, say, focusing on the, on the biosecurity protocol that was very supportive for my business because it was promoting a disinfectant that you could spray in the presence of, legally spray in the presence of animal. But I was missing the broader picture. And this is a mistake that I should have not done since the very beginning. Because you can see that the benefits I was associating the protocols to, say, the outcome, so the livestock parameters, forgetting that these performances are related to the animal welfare, you can see the cortisol, and to the efficiency of the immune system. And of course, we had also the environment was deeply changed by the clean and disinfect protocols. We had less dust, less endotoxin circulating, and basically, I mean, it's again the concept of One Health. I mean, we have here, because we shall not forget that in the barn you have animals that are raised, but also people who are working and very, say, intensively working, I would say. So basically, I think that the whole shooting match is about, say, the mindset. How are we going to change it? How much time do we need to achieve some progress? Because people are not afraid of change, per se. They fear the unknown. They feel at home when they have there was a big sentence by Churchill, Sir Winston Churchill. He was saying that, we start shaping our buildings, and we end up being shaped by the building itself. When we feel at home, we feel comfortable, we don't want to progress, we don't want to challenge ourselves. And here, we need to find a new business, a new industry model. And understand that people can have different mentality. This is a little bit, say, a kind of joke. I was really looking at the different mentalities that I have been meeting during my 30 years commitment to biosecurity. You had the Homo lavantis, people who say, well, I just need a hose, some water, and then I will clean the whole farm. Quite clearly, I mean, this gentleman has no clue about biofilm and the implications of biofilm in creating antibiotic resistance. And then we can have another. No. There again, sorry. Then we have the man of the last chance. Oh, I've been doing everything is possible. I use 3 times more of the antibiotic I should have been using, forgetting, say, the concept or missing the concept of prudent use, but nothing happened. Say the disease concern is still here on the territory of the farm. Quite clearly, in this case, he's missing what is the role of fomites, the vectors of disease. He has to put those under control to limit the impact and the spread of disease on the farm. Then we had, say, the Homo credulus, which is, say, the Latin, kind of Latin translation for, say, for the man who believes. My vet told I have to disinfect. Well, I disinfect and I use the cheaper product because I don't believe in the concept. But yet, I am told to do so, but let's minimize, say, the economic expense. But in this case, he's missing the type the mistake he's making is the type of disinfectant. You need to use the right disinfectant for the right type or the target applications. We had then the fighter, Mr. Fighter. I mean, he appeared on the market at the very beginning of this century when you had all the big emergency diseases popping up, avian flu, foot and mouth disease. He was using disinfection in a therapeutic way. And therefore, when, say, the nightmare was over, then everything went back to normality or to usual, which meant 99% of the cases, no biosecurity at all. Only when quality assurance stepped in, we have vets that realized that to control foodborne pathogens like Salmonella, Campylobacter, Listeria, you could not rely only on antibiotics, but you needed to do something for your environment. Clean and disinfect in a rational way. Now, we have the last man is Mr. Trainman. Mr. Trainman has to catch a train. We still have to push him on the wagon. And the wagon can be, in Europe, is quite clearly defined. It is, say, the new law on animal health that was approved in April last year, where really, say, biosecurity is the supporting, say, beam of the whole discipline. But elsewhere in the world is has a different name, but the same concept. Say, One Health, fight to antibiotic resistance. But piano piano, we have to come to terms with a new concept as well, biocompliance. Or because, say, nowadays we have, say, that, say, key concepts and key approaches on farms are ruled by precise disciplines. So we have, this is true for food safety, for animal welfare, with the biocide regulations for disinfectants and cleaner, all the so-called bioceutical product, and of course the eco-efficiency itself. And basically, if we look, say, over the years we have a changing world. The hygiene market or industry has changed a lot. At the very beginning, up to nearly the end of last century, it was just a farm-to-food approach. We needed to put food on the shelves of our supermarket. Then, with the introduction of quality control and, say, quality assurance, the concept of biosecurity in a very formal way emerged because it was a matter of customer responsiveness. You could not sell products to supermarkets if you didn't prove that you had, for instance, a hazard program in place. Now we are entering, and there are a lot of similarities with the IT industry. There are a lot of similarities. Just now, we have in just a smartphone, we have all the intelligence we need and the data we need when we need it. And this is the same thing. We have to be proactive. It's a kind of a different intangible values are stepping into the equation. And this is what I call, say, the farm to futures scenario, which is half food and half future. And what is a future? This is I've been just using my imagination. Maybe this is a starting point and can be certainly improved. So we have the more layers you are building around your food, the more value you are creating. You are creating for the market, for the producer, for the whole industry. So around the nutritional properties, we will have another one, which is the intelligence. I stands for intelligence, produced in a sustainable and economic way. It's not e-commerce, but stands for environment. So it's the green footprint of our livestock production. And finally, I think it's a little bit still distant, but we have to be ready for the digital revolution even in our conservative market. And we will come to the point where we will have smart and connected food. And really, I mean, just allow on one hand the producer and on the other side the consumer to share probably data and big data on just to improve the quality and the production pattern. But we are just playing with fantasy. What is important for biosecurity, just to come back, are two issues: compliance and execution. And there are dynamics that cannot be skipped. You have to really focus on each step to be sure that you're putting in place a golden biosecurity program that works. And this is down to people. People, people, people. So this is it, because forget, say, the distinction between leader and follower. The farm manager that tells what has to be done. It's a system that is not going to work. It's a pen stroke. What you want is the strategy to work. And there is when you need the people to jump on board. Probably, and we have a nice expression in Italian, that is a sport, it's a football-oriented country, as you know. È una persona che fa spogliatoio. He is a leader. This guy is a leader in the changing room. The changing room is where, say, players are just exchange their secret. They communicate in a non-formal way. Probably, if you can identify in your working team the alpha guy, the one that embraces, say, your suggestion, your recommendation, then it will be much easier by emulation to get on board the rest of the team. And there are quite clearly some work, research work that has been done in that direction. Because no matter what is going to be your communication program, the retention, as you can see here, is very low. So the chair of Montreal University, the biosecurity chair of Montreal University, set up some trials and took as an example, say, the procedure of food tips. And they had a lot of different programs just to measure what is the compliance that they were achieving. So you had a negative control group, say, just a hidden camera just to film how people were behaving in front of. Then they had another one where they put some signposts around, just soliciting for the food tip procedure. And then they had a complete TV recording. And you can see that when people knew that they were going to be video stars, they were complying much better. But that is a process that has to be fostered over time, because you can see that is decreasing. In 6 months' time, you don't notice anymore any difference. So never get tired in coaching your people on the farm about biosecurity procedures. Because, say, the compliance in average is very small. It's just one-third, roughly, all across the board than the theoretical one. Then, is it worth investing into biosecurity? I had a big fortune, and there is some people in the room that went through the same experience as Stefano Zamboni, who is sitting there. We set up a lot of trials because we had products that were perceived as expensive, because they had a kind of specification that went beyond of the limit, beyond the limit that the market was perceiving at that time. So we said, well, we have expensive products. If we want to do a good marketing job, we have to prove that our, say, programs are priceless. And we published the data. We shared the information with vets at IPVS that good biosecurity, say, can decrease the risk of disease if coupled with good practices. In 1996, introducing the all-in, all-out system in the, maybe say Diego can prove that, in the pig industry was a big revolution at that time. We had a lower number of runs, and we were saving on cost of medications. We went on, this is another example, just where we went invoice after invoice to quantify what were the impacts. And that, thanks to the good cooperation we had with, say, our working team or research team and the farmer himself. And now, what is happening now is that in a more formal, in a more scientific way, say, for instance, the University of Ghent is coming to more or less to the same conclusion. After 20 years. But who was wrong? The industry missed an opportunity, maybe. No, it's not that. The industry was not ready. It was not ready for the quantum leap. There was still a cultural gap to be filled. So now time is running fast. Some take-home messages, and I come from Milano. Milan is renowned as the capital, the world capital for fashion. So we have an expertise in catwalk. Let's see if we have it in pig walks. So basically some take-home messages like that. The first thing, I mean, know the farm. You have to know your farm through audits, through knowing what are the critical control points that you have to set up. Try to remember a famous quote by Sun Tzu. Sun Tzu was a Chinese general. He lived maybe 500, 600, a long time ago, before Christ. And, and he was saying, if you want to win the war, I mean, get to know first your enemy, but then don't forget to know your army. And this is very true. It's more or less the same thing. So don't be afraid to waste maybe 10 minutes more to plan ahead, to measure what can be the impact, to simulate what are the outcomes of your actions. McLean, this guy is called McQueen's because McLean's used to be a famous brand in toothpaste, and he's reminding us of a corner store that cannot be missing in any golden biosecurity or wartime biosecurity program: the regular and consistent use of detergents. Detergents will decrease, will offer savings on labor cost, and 80% of a biosecurity program is cost of labor, not the cost of product, not the cost of equipment, and it's labor. So the people on the ground, say the workers, the most humble ones, they have to know why they are making all the efforts, why their job is important. What is the importance, not just for the farm itself, but for the whole community. You can save up to 50% of water with the use of detergents. You can boost the efficacy of any disinfectant by nearly 200 times. And you can, achieve, savings. In a 6,000 SAU unit, we measured that the use of detergents can allow you to afford at least the cost of one man unit. Use licensed product. This is the only way to combine safety, security, and efficacy together. Water. Water systems are going to have a growing importance in the future. And the advice is to keep it, to have protocols that are, follow the KISS rule. That is, keep it simple, stupid. It's a different ecosystem, but the biosecurity principle is the same. First, you clean, and then you disinfect. Probably it can be worth to consider, say, apart from generic chlorine, new active ingredients like, say, troclosan, that can be 5 times more effective in that phase of adhesion, whereby biofilm, develops, and it also, and the bugs will acquire antibiotic resistance. Sanitize the air in continuous flow. This guy, the name of the driver is Hamilton, just because of pork ham. But yes, when you say the art of disinfection, the disinfection art is the first line of defense on the farm again. But use it. Either when you take the truck, the lorry is coming into the farm, but also be respectful and disinfect it when it's getting out. Food tips, we spoke a lot about it. They have to be strategically located around the farm, and the disinfecting solution change every now and then when you see that the dirt is accumulating in the wood tip. There is no point then to spend a lot of money in sophisticated diet if then you're not taking care of the problem or getting rid of a problem of mycotoxins. But here I shut up because I know that you are expert as a company here in Vienna. Don't make silly mistakes, like, taking your sow, which is dirty, in a farrowing unit where you spend hours to clean and disinfect it. Remember animal welfare. We know that endorphins are important for human beings, but also for animals. We perform better or more efficiently when we feel better, but also we feel good. We are at peace with ourselves. Structural and biosecurity is important. Avoid overcrowding, competition at the feeding trough rather than the nipple. And of course, then there is behavioral biosecurity, which is also important. So you use, say, a hand sanitizer every time you get close to a pig. It's not just to protect yourself, it's to protect the pig, that you are not conveying any disease concern just by simply touching them. So I think, and this is the last slide, finally, yeah? And I think that, say, really, biosecurity has a role within a holistic approach to, say, to guide the market to a prudent use of antibiotics. And also, it will allow us to produce efficiently as much as we did in the past when antibiotics were available. The only thing, we have to reach a compromise with ourselves. We have to be, not only be ready for change, but be the change itself. I have finished. I know that then there should be, I don't want to anticipate Mr. Chairman, but let me say that après moi le déluge, après moi le coffee break.
Après vous.
Okay, thank you.